Welcome to new Team CGC 9.8 video. So today I wanted to talk about something that's been really helpful for me as a collector, I think, and I don't think we talk about it too much on the channel here. You know, I think one of the things we're always talking about, you want to be patient, you want to wait for the right price so you don't overpay for your CGC 9.8 comic book. But I think besides that, one of the other best things that you could do as a, comic book collector, whether you're buying CGC or raw comics, is to just be more independent. So when I say be more independent, I think it's so much better when you kind of do that soul searching and kind of find out what you love that way. Like, what's really nostalgic, what really sticks out to me for some reason or another. And, you want to look back 5, 10, maybe even 20 years to sort of, get all the information you need to find out what you really love on an independent scale. Because, yeah, I don't think you really want to, listen to an announcement. Oh, an announcement just came out, so, now I like that comic. Or, oh, that show's really hot that everyone's watching. Now everyone likes that comic. Now I'm going to go out and buy that one. Really, I think that's not the savviest way to collect. And then what ends up happening that way, it's kind of really could sort of destroy the hobby for you in a way, where 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you look back at those hot issues that you bought, and they're all maybe half price or 20% less price than you paid for them or whatever it might be, and that can really discourage people and turn people off to the hobby. So yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more into it here. I got 3 ways here that you can be more independent when you're collecting comic books and CGC 9.8 comic books or whatever it might be. And then I got 2 comic book recommendations at the end that they're comic books that I don't even think I've ever mentioned on the channel. And I think they're really good ideas of just an idea that I've come up with independently. So we'll get into all that. What kind of made me think of this video is that Star Wars Clone Wars #1 book right now with the first Ashoka Tano, I think it is. Ashoka Tano. Star Wars Clone Wars #1 is such a hot book right now. And that was actually, let's call it 4 or 5 months ago, a really cool underfollowed Star Wars first appearance that you could have bought. It's a great book, don't get me wrong. But back then, I think $200, maybe even up to $250 if you really wanted it. It was kind of like a really cool underfollowed modern book that people wanted. Now, it was, I believe, Rosario Dawson is going to play this character in the Mandalorian I don't know if it's the next season or whatever it is. And I'm pretty sure it was confirmed. I was reading an article, just doing the research for the video kind of thing. After that, this book has absolutely exploded, and there's a variant cover for it, and I think some of the CGC 9.8 completed sales for that are over $1,000 for a modern book that, was a good buy around, maybe the variant was, kicking in the 300s to 400s, but, yeah, so, to me, those are kind of the situations you want to avoid, and you can really avoid all those by being, completely independent. And I brought up my Batman Beyond #1s because this is a good example that worked for me, that, I know my Batman Beyond #1, CGC 9.8, around 400, I purchased them between 400 and 450, and yeah, there was some raised eyebrows, certainly, by some comic book people that I told that I had paid that much for these comic books, so, but I really loved Batman Beyond, and I knew I looked on the census, so I had that information, that education, and, that works so good, and then, I just acted on my own instinct rather than, I paid 400 for Batman Beyond #1, oh, wow, you're crazy, why'd you do that, wow, that's so much, despite that, now this book, there's a couple that have sold for 700 lately in the CGC 9.8. So 400 to 700 in a year or two is a pretty awesome, return for an independent buy. Yeah, again, an independent buy. And Ultimate Fallout 4 comes to mind as, one I was able to grab one of them for 350. And that one, you looked on the census, it was more rare than all its competitive books in the CGC 9.8. So that one was another one where it just made sense. Well, I'm surprised that's really cheap compared to NYX #3. So I'm just kind of bummed out that I didn't buy maybe 2 or 3 of Ultimate Fallout #4. On a total independent basis, you could have did that. Now these rumors are heating up, and now it's 700 basically for that book as well. 2 great examples of how you can be independent and maybe have some information even better behind the scenes, some census information saying that this book's more rare than other books that are more expensive. Yeah, that's a great kind of combination, sort of having the independence and then maybe some facts on your side. So let's get into it. 3 ways to be more independent. So the first one is, I personally, I would not recommend to follow comic book news websites like religiously. Like, you don't want to like go on them every single day and be really on top of the comic book announcements and think that you can like act on them. I just think that's kind of a losing game over time. It's just not. What I would personally do is, maybe check in on them every now and then, maybe follow them on Instagram, and then you end up hearing things from people anyway. So, yeah, like, because like a good example of this right now is the Frank Miller signing. Like, it's good to just know that there's a Frank Miller signing in this with the CGC Signature Series books. So then, yeah, some of these Frank Miller books are kind of more elevated in price. So for me, I'm going to lay off Frank Miller kind of books right now. I'm just going to wait till all the promotion's done. And I bet, if you're patient and you wait for an auction like 6 months to a year from now, you'll get a little bit better price on like classic Frank Miller books. And yeah, a lot of like Wolverine Limited Series books, number ones, are selling for like 20 to 30 to 40% because of this Frank Miller signings heating things up. So you want to stay in the know, but you don't want to feel like you have to follow these comic book news sites religiously and sort of act on, like, now this person's going to be in this movie and this person, like, no, that's not, I wouldn't recommend that. Like, now I'm going to go buy that comic book. Like, I don't think that's a sustainable strategy kind of thing. So another second thing here. So that was number 1. Number 2 is don't buy any comic books like on the current hot list. To be honest, like, it's almost every book on that list, in my experience, the books that I know the price history of, the prices, like, let's call it 4 to 6 months before they were on the hot list, were a lot less. So basically, you just really want to buy what you love, that the books that aren't on the hot list. Like, it's almost that easy in a sense, because then you're going to pay really good prices for your books, and then there's going to be that chance out of nowhere where something happens, some surprise, some announcement, some rumor, and the price is going to pop, and then you enjoy that. That's the fun thing, one of the fun things about collecting, whereas you're always on the other end of that if you're just buying hot books because, like, you see it on movies or the show is hot. You buy the books, and then the prices end up dipping down, and there's no other promotion after that because that promotion doesn't last forever, and then, there's not going to be, like, just promotion after promotion because a certain character. I mean, there could be, but, this isn't for every case, obviously, but I think in general you want to stay away from those hot lists, like in the current environment hot lists. Like, maybe you can look at some old hot list videos and check out those and, get some ideas. That probably would be something even better. And the last thing is just to have that knowledge that knowing that the best investment grade books over the long term in the past, 20 to 30 years are like first appearance of Spider-Man, first appearance of Hulk, first appearance of Iron Man, first appearance of Venom, first appearance of Deadpool. In the modern age, like Star Wars, first appearance of Wolverine, first appearance of Punisher, first appearance of X-Men. Like, you don't have to overthink things very much with comic book investing. Like, you really just want to, like, and I recommend this a lot, stick to those main characters, those main big brands. Like, a great example of this is how you can convert this to kind of the modern age is Ultimate Fallout 4. Like, Amazing Fantasy 15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, has been the hottest, best book in comic books to have in the last 10 years. So it's like, okay, you know what? New Spider-Man, Miles Morales, really being embraced as the new Spider-Man. That might just be a great one to get in the 9.8. And then, look, on the census, it's the most rare in the 9.8, like, when you compare it to, like, first Spider-Gwen, first X-23 and all that. So, you stick to those big iconic brands rather than, this, like, obscure first appearance that, even Punchline comes to mind, like that Batman 89. In that sort of month there where it was like, wow, the new Harley Quinn 2.0, I was like, I wasn't impressed, and it's just like, I had that feeling that this book's going to be like about $100 in an auction in like 2-3 months, and now it is. Like, in auctions back then were about $175 in the CGC 9.8 white pages, and we just had one, I think it was either Batman 89 or the Hell Arisen number 3 book, went for just under $100 in the CGC 9.8 in an auction. Most of them are still kind of going over to like 110, 120, so that's kind of the range it's settled at. And again, you wouldn't want to be that person that bought Batman 89 for $175 in the peak in the CGC 9.8 And now 3 months later, if you're looking at the prices, you probably feel a bit discouraged. And again, that's why I think being independent is just really important. And if you're not independent, it can really turn you off to the hobby. Yeah, you won't survive too long in the hobby. Whereas if you are independent, you just buy cool, awesome things, and then eventually something happens somehow, whether it's a rumor or, you know, if you just stock up on even that, my Incredible Hulk 340s. I mean, second time Wolverine and Hulk fight, Todd McFarlane cover. I love Todd McFarlane. I bought 4 of those in the CGC 9.8, all for about $400. And yeah, now definitely a lot are selling over 500. And I think one sold for over 600 in an auction. Yeah, that was a couple days ago. So, I mean, another good example of, yeah, me making those independent choices just based on what I love and a bit of soul searching and what I found nostalgic and what covers really caught my eye. And, you know, the one thing to mention, though, you do kind of want to stick to key issues and those big brands. Like, you want to have a bit of a framework, even though you're being independent. You want to have that freedom and independence, and you don't want to just, again, listen to the corporations or the announcements to tell you what comic to buy. You want to have that independence. A couple other points I wanted to make before I get into my 2 comic book recommendations that are 2 books that you can buy in the raw for like $5 or $10 in bins usually. And I'm kind of maybe looking out to possibly get them in the 9.8. But like, one thing to mention before I do that, if you really love like a hot book, because that happens, you know, you just somehow you're really attracted to some book and it's like hot right now and the show's, you know, good. You know, I think you want to be patient. You want to wait like that 6 to 12 month range. You'll get a better price. I mean, it's really, you know, kind of, you get excited and you really want a book. I know the feeling. So it's tough to avoid that urge, but you wait 6 to 12 months, you'll probably get a better price. Mine, Silver Surfer 44 CGC 9.8s. I bought 2 of them. Perfect example. One I paid for $230 during Avengers Endgame in an auction. One I paid $155 for 6 months after Avengers Endgame was out of theater in an auction as well. So just a great idea, or yeah, a great example of you know, how the promotions can affect the price. So yeah, if you really do like a hot book, try to be patient. Okay, the 2 recommendations. First one is just the coolest cover. These are both Jim Lee covers. I love Jim Lee, so again, another thing where it's just like a personal thing. Really love Jim Lee art. So this book here is Superman Unchained #9. I think one of the coolest covers, you know, Jim Lee Superman covers, I think, out there, for sure. And yeah, we'll get into another one on the next one here. But yeah, I won't really look at the 9.8 information or anything. But I think this is a really cool underfollowed Jim Lee cover that on eBay, I think you can probably get it for $5. Yeah, you know, with shipping maybe a little bit more, but it's really cheap. And one that you can look for in bins as well, your local comic shop. That's what I actually plan to do right after I'm done this video. I'm going to head over to my local comic shop, maybe even drive over to one of the other ones and see if they got any of these 2 books. But I just think they fit that, you know, me just being independent right now, looking on the net for things that I love. I'm a really huge fan of Jim Lee Batman run, the Hush run. I got all those 2 times over in the raw. Yeah, that's one that I really, when I first got back into collecting, like, I love Jim Lee, love Batman, so I just got as many raws of those as I could. So I could see myself kind of going down that route with some of these Superman Unchained from 1 to 9 was all Jim Lee. And Superman, what is it, 204 to 215, I think, was all Jim Lee. So, yeah, so just a great book to consider if you know, I'm not the biggest Superman fan. That's what kind of took me off guard getting into these Superman books, but I absolutely love these covers. The next one is Superman number 205. So wow, just a super cool cover as well. It kind of looks pretty similar, maybe in the same type of vein as Unchained, but I think I did mention Jim Lee did the Superman run and the Superman Unchained run. These are my 2 favorite covers out of the run, those 2 runs, and I just think they're amazing. And yeah, if you can find them at a local comic book shop, they're definitely worth considering. And yeah, and when we're doing an independent video here, Superman, he's not really hot right now. I definitely hadn't heard, like, I didn't read any articles saying, oh, go out and, like, Jim Lee's, you know, I think he is doing a CGC signing event, possibly, but, so we might have to look out for that, but, in the coming future. But I don't think Superman's hot or Jim Lee's really hot in any way. It's not like the McFarlane signature event kind of thing that was kind of getting a lot of McFarlane fans coming out of the woodwork. But yeah, I just came up with these books independently, and Batman Beyond #1 I came up with independently, and you know, I have 2 Amazing Spider-Man 300 CGC 9.8s, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, $2,000 for a book, it's not worth it. But on the CGC census, it's like a 5.8% CGC 9.8 ratio, so it's extremely rare in the 9.8, and that's why it's so expensive. All the prices correlate to that 9.8 rarity for a late 80s book. So when you have those facts on your side, you can make that independent decision regardless of pretty much what anyone else says on the internet or whatever it might be. And I think it's even more important, yeah, that's a good point, is people on the internet saying that you're wrong for doing this or that. It becomes even more important to be independent because you got to stick to your guns. Like, it wouldn't have mattered if I bought 2 of these and then, you know, once they started going over 500, I was like, oh, I'm selling. Like, you know, like I want to keep these for a really long time because I just love the art, I love the cover, I love Batman Beyond, I love Bruce Timm. So, like, just everything about it, and I wouldn't ever want to trade up that pride of ownership to make, like, $100 on each of these, or now it would be, like, $200 or $300 on each of these if I wanted to sell them, but, like, I'm not even thinking about it, so. Okay, yeah, so be independent, a thing that can be easily overlooked, and I think, yeah, we do talk about kind of being patient and the price a lot, but this is another part of the equation I think that's really important. Alright, if you haven't already, though, I invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8 and hit the bell to get all the latest notifications. Add me on Instagram and Twitter, too. Alright, yeah, just, yeah, a bit of a different video because I kind of didn't have any comic book list, but I did want to get a couple recommendations in, but, yeah, more important than ever to be independent, I think, in kind of this age where there's so many opinions out there on the internet, so you really gotta stick to your guns and do your analysis, and I think when you do that, comic book collecting's awesome, and I think you want to be on that side of the collecting kind of spectrum. So, yeah, thanks so much for the support. Message me on Instagram if you have any questions about anything. I'll see everyone on the next video.